Well, good morning. My name is Rocky Moretti. Moretti is M-O-R-E-T-T-I, and I'm the Director of Policy and Research with TRIP, a transportation research nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. TRIP, as an organization, is supported by a coalition of manufacturing, insurance, construction, labor, and engineering organizations, and they look to us to put out the latest information on the condition and the performance of the nation's transportation system. After my comments, we're joined today by Lance Binoniemi. Lance is the Vice President of Government Affairs with MITA, the Michigan Infrastructure and Transportation Association, and he'll provide comments after I speak. The format is pretty straightforward. After you hear from myself and Lance, we'll open it up for questions. At that point, if through the raised hand function or the chat function, you indicate you have a question, you'll be elevated to the panel so you can interact with us asking questions of myself or Lance. This report, Keeping Michigan Mobile, is based on our analysis of the latest data from the U.S. Department of Transportation and also by the Michigan Department of Transportation. In the report, we provide data for the state's largest urban areas. To expedite this, during my initial comments, I'll provide data for the Detroit, Lansing, and Grand Rapids areas. We've also recorded video quality videos for all 9 urban areas, providing all of the critical data for each region. So that's also a resource for journalists. The report really goes back to 2019 when the Rebuild Michigan program was passed, that really allowed the state to move forward with a significant ramping up of its infrastructure program. Unfortunately, as the report points out, Michigan still faces an annual $3.9 billion deficit in funding needed to preserve and maintain the state's significant number in terms of miles of roads and highways and number of bridges. The Rebuild Michigan program has been very helpful over the last 5 years in allowing approximately $3.5 billion to be added to the program by allowing the state to initially borrow that money through bonding based on the additional resources coming at them due to the additional funding that was provided. But as that program ends, unfortunately, the state's annual reconstruction budget is going to drop from approximately $500 million annually to $222 million. The department also points out that obviously this is going to have a significant impact on the state's ability to maintain the condition of its roads and bridges. It will also result in approximately 2,800 fewer construction jobs in the state. The additional funding that came from the Rebuild Michigan program has also been enhanced by, in 2021, the approval of the federal bipartisan transportation program, which brought another $7.3 billion over that 5 years into Michigan for investments in its roads, bridges, and public transit systems. Unfortunately, since its approval, we've seen a 54% rate of inflation in highway construction costs. And so that has significantly limited the benefit of the increased federal and also state funding. Excuse me. Let me turn to some of the other key findings of the report. The TRIP report finds that the overall cost annually to Michigan motorists of roadways that are often have poor pavement conditions, causing rough rides to motorists, of traffic congestion causing delays, and also of the economic cost of traffic crashes in which there's the lack of adequate roadway safety features were a contributing factor, is $17.3 billion annually. TRIP estimates that the average cost to motorists in the Detroit area of roads that are deteriorated, congested, and lacking some desirable safety features is $2,921 annually. TRIP estimates that in the Grand Rapids area, the average cost of motorists of roads that are deteriorated, congested, and lacking some desirable safety features is $2,302 annually. TRIP estimates that in the Lansing area, the average cost annually to motorists of roads that are deteriorated, congested, and lacking some desirable safety features is $1,856 annually. We also took a look at the condition of major roadways in the state. This is the interstates and really all of the roadways in the state other than local suburban roads in terms of pavement condition. We note in the report that in Michigan, 21% of major roads have pavements rated in poor condition and another 19% are rated in mediocre condition. In the Detroit area, the report finds that 42% of major roadways have pavements in poor condition and another 19% are rated in mediocre condition. The report finds that in the Grand Rapids area, 36% of major roadways are rated in poor condition and another 18% are rated in mediocre condition. The report finds that in the Lansing area, 37% of major roadways are rated in poor condition and another 20% are rated in mediocre condition. The report also found that 11% of bridges in Michigan are currently rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and another 56% are rated in fair condition. The report found that in the Detroit area, 9% of the region's bridges are rated in poor condition. The report found that in the Grand Rapids area, 8% of bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair. The report finds in the Lansing area, 11% of the region's bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair. We also took a look at travel in Michigan, and like all states, there was a significant reduction in travel during the COVID-19 pandemic. By last year in Michigan, travel had returned to within 4% of pre-COVID levels, and we see this year that travel has increased so far this year by 1% from last year, as travel in Michigan returns to pre-pandemic levels. The report finds that in the Detroit area, that the average motorist is spending an additional 64 hours annually stuck in traffic due to traffic congestion and wasting 24 gallons of fuel. The report finds that in the Grand Rapids area, the average motorist is spending an additional 43 hours annually stuck in traffic due to traffic congestion and wasting 16 gallons of fuel. The TRIP report finds that in the Lansing area, the average motorist is spending an additional 16 hours annually stuck in traffic due to traffic congestion and wasting an additional 6 hours, in the Lansing area, the TRIP report estimates that the average motorist is spending an additional 16 hours annually stuck in traffic and wasting 6 gallons of fuel. Finally, the report looked at traffic safety. Across the country, as TRIP has noted in its annual report on traffic safety, that the country is facing a traffic safety crisis. And unfortunately, this is also certainly true in Michigan. The report found that over the last 5 years, there's been an average of 1,294 traffic fatalities in Michigan. And we've also noted that over the last decade, the number of traffic fatalities, which includes motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists, has increased by 16% in Michigan. The report notes that over the last 5 years in the Detroit area, there's been an average of 382 traffic fatalities annually. The report notes that in the Grand Rapids area, over the last 5 years, there have been an average of 101 traffic fatalities annually. In the Lansing area, the TRIP report found that over the last 5 years, there's been an average of 47 people killed annually in traffic crashes. The U.S. Department of Transportation has put out a comprehensive approach to significantly improving roadway safety. It has 5 major elements, including the drivers driving at safer speeds and taking greater precautions as motorists. It includes additional improvements in vehicles that increasingly are getting safer but still have a long way to go, and improving post-care crash to make sure that when people are in traffic crashes, they get prompt and the best possible care possible. But a critical part of that approach is also safer roads. And we know that there's a variety of cost-effective roadway safety improvements, from adding rumble strips to paving shoulders to improving lane markings, improving intersection design, adding turn lanes. All of these improvements are very cost-effective and have been proved very effective in keeping motorists safe. And similarly, we've also seen that cost-effective improvements for bicyclists and pedestrians are very effective and can be very critical in a state like Michigan, where 18% of traffic fatalities are motorists and bicyclists. So if transportation agencies have the resources available, they have shown that they're quite effective in terms of making the transportation system as safe as possible. So I'm going to conclude there, pointing out that Michigan has certainly made progress over the last 5 years with the additional funding from the state's program, but also at the federal level, although that has certainly been diminished by the significant rate of traffic inflation. And really the challenge moving forward as travel in Michigan returns to pre-pandemic levels, will be putting in place a transportation system with adequate resources to make sure that not only does Michigan have the ability to improve the condition of its roads and bridges, but also to make the system more reliable and safer. With that, I'll invite Lance to comment on our report. Lance?
Well, good morning, and thank you, Rocky. My name is Lance Binoniemi, B-I-N-O-N-I-E-M-I. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Infrastructure and Transportation Association, or more commonly known as MITA. MITA represents about 600 companies that build our roads, bridges, underground water and sewers, all types of infrastructure across Michigan. Thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate your focus on this important issue. This is just another great and extensive report, one of several stacked up in lawmakers' desks to show that we need to invest more in our roads and bridges. The TRIP report really puts a human element towards it. As a driver of 30 years in Michigan, I take for granted the fact that we have poor roads and that I have to replace tires, and so does everyone else in our state. There's not a single person that doesn't know a family member or a friend or themselves who has been affected by poor roads and damage to their vehicle, or costly commute times, or safety measures, unfortunately. And so this report really can showcase all of those elements of how our poor roads are impacting the everyday driver in Michigan. In addition, this report does show that we've properly invested over the past 5 years in our infrastructure. And what we call the funding cliff happens next year as the governor's bonding program runs out and as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act from Congress all run out as well. And so those short-term fixes did a wonderful job at our highway system in Michigan. Unfortunately, did not include increases in our local system. And so those systems have been beat up throughout that construction season. Those investments go away. With that going away, our pavement continues to deteriorate, causing more problems on our road to our citizens and more problems for our workers. We estimate at MITA that we will lose up to 10,000 jobs over the next 3 years in our industry if nothing is done with the legislature. The report shows 2,800 in the first year. And so this is an urgent matter that we express great urgency to lawmakers to find a solution to our ongoing problem that we have with our road funding. The TRIP report is just another great example of a report that showcases the need and showcases what will happen if we do nothing. Thank you, Rocky.
Thank you, Lance. I'm now going to ask my colleague Carolyn Kelly to explain how we'll handle media questions.
Thanks, Rocky, and thanks, Lance. As Rocky noted earlier, we'll now have an opportunity for a Q&A with Rocky and Lance for those who have joined us on the call this morning. If you have any questions, you can use either the raise hand function that you see below on your screen, or you can submit your questions to the chat. I'll then be able to moderate the Q&A, and I'll elevate you to a panelist so that you can ask your question live of Rocky or Lance. I'll also note that while we wait for some questions to come in, the full report is now up on the TRIP website. You can find that at tripnet, tripnet.org. We'll also have a recording of this news conference that'll be up there in the next hour or so. And we've got news releases for each of the urban areas for which we've got data in the report. So I do see a question that's come in from Andrew Munigar. So Andrew, I've promoted you to a panelist. And if you rejoin us and unmute your line, you can ask your question.
Hi, yes, thank you. Andrew Miniger with MERS News. This question's for Lance. Lance, can you share your thoughts regarding the House road budget that was passed, the supplemental that was passed just recently?
Yeah, we're very supportive of the House's efforts. They've been full steam ahead on road funding issues since their passage of their road funding plan back in March, which was, I believe, was a $3.1 billion plan. The $3.4 billion that they passed yesterday, we are very encouraged by, and we're hopeful that that's a start to the negotiations between the Senate and the governor.
Thank you.
And we've got Arpan Lobo with the Detroit Free Press. I'll promote you to a panelist. And then again, once you unmute your line, you'll be able to ask your question.
Hi, thanks. Arpan Lobo from the Detroit Free Press. You know, some other reports have kind of just found that Michigan's roads and road infrastructure just lags comparatively to other states across the country. You know, it seems kind of straightforward that funding is kind of a way to improve that. As from a statewide economic perspective, how much does Michigan stand to gain by adequately, funding its road and bridge infrastructure as a way to kind of push the state forward with some of its other goals? Like the report mentions things like population and economic growth. I'm curious if you guys can kind of expand on that.
Lance, if you want to address that first, and then I have some sort of broader response to that, but maybe you can speak more specifically, obviously, with your knowledge of Michigan.
Yeah, I'm not sure how specific I can get, but certainly for every $1 billion the state invests in construction, it produces about 20,000 jobs. And so talking about population growth, we're going the opposite direction if we do nothing over the next 6 months in the legislature. And so we can expand as a good job growth. These are good paying, high skilled jobs that, if we do have to lay people off and there are tens of thousands of jobs missing, they will find jobs in other states where they are properly investing in their infrastructure. They don't typically go and take their skills and go into a different industry within Michigan. We saw that in 2008, where a lot of our employees went down to other states to take those skills and utilize that. So on a micro level, it certainly impacts the industry, which impacts population growth. On a macro level, good roads really affect all of our economy. It affects tourism, it affects agriculture, and so every aspect of Michigan's economy really is impacted by good roads. Even our ability to attract businesses to our state has a huge impact on our road system. And so we believe that good roads will support a great economy.
Arpan, we've done several reports. In fact, we did one in Michigan several years ago. And if you contact me subsequent to this news conference, we'll track that down for you. But the report looked at what is the impact of different levels of investment in Michigan. And what the report showed is that when you increase money in preservation, you end up with roads in better condition. Well, that's going to save the motorist money because you're driving on roads that are far more efficient for your vehicle. So your vehicle lasts longer, you need fewer repairs, so you're saving money there. In terms of investment in bridges, and I know Michigan really is facing a significant challenge in addressing its bridge needs, it really is an asset. And when you fall behind, it is a cost to future taxpayers, because at the end of the day, we need the bridges to remain open, or at the very least not restricted to lighter weight vehicles, which have economic consequences. And then in terms of safety, a very critical one, we see across the country that when investments are made to improve roadway safety, we see significant benefits in terms of reduced fatalities. Again, there's a very good federal report looking specifically at how each different type of safety improvement reduces crashes. And then finally, in terms of reliability, when any regional or state transportation agencies improves additional access, we see an improvement in reliability. And so what our report showed in Michigan is that when you increase investment in transportation, you save Michigan households a significant amount of money because they have a transportation system that's better preserved, it's more reliable, and it's safer.
Thanks, Lance and Rocky. And if there's any follow-up questions to that, Arpan, you can feel free to ask. I don't see any other hands up or any questions in the queue right now. But again, I'll note that Rocky or Lance, if there's anything else that you wanted to add before.
I think another question just came in.
Oh, yeah, I just saw one hand go up. Liz Nass. Liz, I'll promote you to a panelist. And then once you mute your line, you'll be able to ask your question.
Hi, do you guys hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, awesome. So, in these findings, and maybe this is more for Lance, but, what do you think is the most consequential part of like the House Road Plan? What investments as part of this plan would be the biggest impact on what you found here?
I'm not quite sure exactly what you're asking.
Like, what part of the House Road Plan do you think would best answer some of these issues that you found in this study?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I think one of the best aspects of the House Roads Plan is its focus on the local level. And so it takes the $2 billion that they suggest to come out of the state budget to go into a different formula than the current formula is in terms of percentage, and they move a higher percentage to the local network. And then I think a really key part of their plan, I think it's $275 million that they have set aside every year for the neighborhood streets program. In a lot of our suburban counties, there are a lot of neighborhood streets and subdivisions that are in desperate need of repair, and the counties do not have the money to do that, and the townships do not have the money to do that. The House's plan sets aside $275 million for those roads, and it does not require the local township to match the funds, which currently they have to. And so I think that aspect is really going to help out the average driver driving around town every day, and having those repair costs.
All right. Thanks, Liz, and thanks, Lance. And so, Rocky and Lance, if there's anything else that you'd like to add, feel free to go ahead. I think we've got, and if there are any other questions, feel free to raise your hand or drop those into the chat now.
Well, again, I want to thank Lance for participating in the call and adding a little more context for the challenges in Michigan, and just point out to any of the journalists on the call that I'm certainly available throughout the day for additional interviews, and certainly video interviews during the day as well. So by all means, if you're putting stories together and have additional questions, reach out to us. We'll be happy to address those. Lance, any other final comments?
Just look out for those road workers while you drive past them and pay attention.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for attending today's news conference, and hope everyone has a productive, safe day.